Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Oh, Tony, I regret to inform you we are coming to you live from the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, the practice indoor facility. Finished talking to the safeties. Mm-hmm. It feels suspiciously like football season might almost be here. We just hung out outside a hotel last night for like 2 hours for the usual weird reasons. It is dangerously close to football season here in Columbus, Ohio.
It is, and this is the first time we actually talked on a show together in a couple of weeks. Have you seen everything going on in college football?
Yeah, it's been like a week. How much could have possibly happened in a week?
It felt like more.
It was so long ago that Washington and Oregon were in the Pac-12. Utah and Arizona State were still in the Pac-12. The ACC wasn't looking at adding two schools who are on the Pacific coast.
Right.
My son said they should just change it to the Ocean Coast Conference, and that would solve that. So you should be in charge of at least one major. I have a feeling he would do a better job as the head of at least one of what used to be called the Power Five.
There's a pretty good chance Pac-12 would still be something if somebody else was in charge. So here we are. As you said, safeties today. Talked to safety coach Perry Eliano, Sonny Styles, Cam Martinez, Lathan Ransom, Jihad Carter, and I think that was it.
I believe that was it, because I had Jihad Carter at my table. You had just Cam Martinez at
and
your
Lathan
table.
Ransom.
And Lathan Ransom at yours, and then
it was
that
Sonny
was it.
and Perry Eliano.
Yep.
Which is an interesting topic, I guess, because after the first day of practice, everybody was talking about Sonny Styles being with the ones at nickel, and after a full year of Buckeye fans clamoring for Sonny Styles to be on the field, it happens in the first practice. He's with the first team, and then there's a new level of panic, like, you can't put him at nickel. And so that's been interesting to watch, where 6'4", 230 pounds, not your typical nickel back, but he's also not your typical safety in that regard either. So there's some concern, I need to see it. And I think, it's just natural. I'm the one who said he's never going to play deep safety at Ohio State, in terms of, like, he's never going to be the free safety. He might be a star safety, but you just don't see guys like him at free safety. Where else you don't see those guys at the nickel back?
Yeah, all spring, I think that was the one spot on the safety depth chart that I thought, well, we know he's going to be at the bandit spot, which is their boundary safety spot, which is their kind of strong safety, which is much more involved in the run game, because you're 6'4", 230, and I think he's actually technically 229, so let's not body shame him
today.
But you look at someone who's that size and that weight, and you go, okay, this is not someone who's probably going to be able to cover short, shifty slot receivers and do all the stuff you need to do in the slot, and he's probably not going to, the most natural fit is not at that adjuster, the deep safety spot. So, okay, we'll pencil him in at bandit. And then I was out of town last week, and I'm seeing this stuff, and I'm like, these people not know where the safety spots are? Like, why is everyone saying he's at nickel? And it turns out it's because he's at nickel. And that does feel a little bit like I want to kind of see it to believe it, because it doesn't feel like where it should fit. But he's someone who kind of defies a lot of the typical the typical assumptions about someone his size and how fast they can move. So as he said, he's going up against the best wide receivers in the country every day at practice. So. And I think the sort of unspoken assumption there is that he's doing okay at it. So if you can do it against them, then you can probably do it against pretty much anyone else.
Yeah, Ryan Day always talks about the quarterbacks, how you just, and everybody really, you just want to see them in a game. That's when you'll know how they're going to perform. I think this might be the closest simulation to a game is when you're facing Emeka Egbuka, Marvin Harrison, because they're moving him all around. He'll be in the slot. He'll be matched. Sonny has to deal with that. Not even getting into like a Brandon Ennis or Xavier Johnson and different things. Cade Stover. He talked about Jelani Thurman, and he's like, people say I'm a specimen. That guy's a specimen. And so, all of these different guys that he's had to face, you'll get exposed out here. You'll be found out really quickly defending these wide receivers. And to this point, he seems to be doing okay. As Lathan Ransom said, like, people are, It's surprising how well he can move. Yes, obviously he's big. He's going to help in the run game. He's going to help defend tight ends, but you still have to be able to turn and run. Like, remember Sean Wade turning and running with KJ Hamler for 97 yards or whatever. Like, even guys who are very good in the slot can have trouble with that. So I'm interested to see how it is continued to be employed. I'm assuming you've got the free safety over top where there's going to be some help. But I think it's interesting to me because there's so much focus on what he can't do. He's on the field because of what he can do. And I think that will show on the field. And then all of this is going to be great. And then it just takes one stumble for you to be labeled,
Right. Yeah. If I say Cam Martinez, everyone immediately says, hey, remember that long touchdown against Michigan? If I say Lathan Ransom, everyone says, hey, remember that one time he slipped against Georgia? If I say Sean Springs, I mean, this is – and Sean Springs was a number 3 draft pick and went on to a very, very long, borderline Hall of Fame career. I don't think – he's not actually in the Hall of Fame, right?
Not yet.
I think he was kind of close. But when I say Sean Springs, that's immediately the first play everyone – and that's kind of the nature of playing defensive back where you got to have to – you got to have a short memory because – you have the one bad moment where you lose your footing or whatever it is, and boom, you're on a highlight forever.
Yeah, and if you guys got questions, live viewers, go ahead and hit us up. Kevin, anybody in the hopper there? Are we good?
McChickens, give me Woody 69 says Tony needs a McChicken ASAP.
Well, you see, you don't need to read that stuff. I
want to read that stuff.
That was strongly implied, I thought. But,
yeah.
Jihad Carter was kind of interesting to talk to because he's obviously a transfer from Syracuse, came over this spring, and he had played a bunch in the slot at Syracuse. So the assumption was, okay, he's going to play in the slot at Ohio State. And then now he's not. That's not what he's doing. So he was talking, first of all, a little bit about the injury this spring and said he went down. It was practice 7, practice 8 of the spring.
Yeah, it was middle.
It was one where we were there and we saw him go down. It was kind of like, that didn't look real good. And that was his thought as well, was he said immediately your mind goes to worst case scenario kind of thing. And kind of got in, figured out what the issue was. He didn't say specifically what the issue was, but but he got the diagnosis, said, okay, good, this is something I can just work through with the trainers. And it was a lot of work with the trainers, but you work through it with the trainers and back on the field now. He said that, he is someone who, some people are visual learners or, learn by hearing, learn by watching, whatever. He's someone who learns by doing. So that he said that was really tough on him the second half of the spring. If you're a learn by doing person who can't do it, that's going to set your learning back a little bit.
Well, which is interesting because Jim Knowles talks about how much he loves the fact that Jihad Carter, you can tell him something and he'll fix it. Like, you'll go do it and you tell him, this is what you did well, this is what you did wrong. And then he can take that and then do the right thing the next time. And they love how much he can apply the teaching and learn on the fly. And so I guess if learning on the fly is technically, so I guess do it and then figure it out at that point. So it was surprising, though, that first day to come out here and see Lathan Ransom and Jihad Carter and Sonny Styles with that first group. And I'm trying – you're looking at it all on the same plane and you're trying to figure out where is Jihad Carter the nickel in this? Is Sonny Styles the deep safety? Because obviously Lathan Ransom, you're going to assume is the same boundary, strong safety he was last year. So just watching them on the same side, like trying to see who moves further back, and it's hard to see over other people. And eventually you're like, holy cow, that does look like Sonny and in the slot and Jihad in the back end. But Jihad Carter did everything at Syracuse. Like, he played in every single safety position. I had an NFL guy said one team was looking at him as a cornerback. So like he can do all of that.
And he played quarterback in high school. He talked about that. Did I say cornerback? I want to enunciate that correctly. He played cornerback in high school. And he said he likes, in terms of being versatile, he feels like he can do everything, and he has done everything at Syracuse. So, I think the assumption was nickel, but apparently not necessarily. He did say, Sonny Styles, very similar to what you hear from a lot of people at Sonny Styles. Not many guys that big can move like that, which, that's the
breaking.
Yeah. He did say the day-to-day competition at Ohio State, like whenever you talk to guys coming from other programs, it's always kind of interesting, and they don't want to say anything unkind about their former program, but when you can get someone to kind of answer that question, it's always kind of interesting. He said the day-to-day competition at Ohio State, and just every day you're out there with everyone was the best. This is not like, oh, I was the best player in my county in high school. Like, oh wow, congratulations. So it's literally everyone else here. That is the sort of the table stakes to getting in to play football at Ohio State. So that competition, coaching and the competition, are really the two things that were very different for him getting to Ohio State.
Yeah, Cam Martinez talked about the competition as well. Just it can't help but make you better because, especially. He's competing with Sonny Styles right now, and there'll be different packages, but everybody, they're competing against very talented, very experienced for the most part players. Perry Eliano said they want a 6+1 in terms of finding a rotation of safety. So obviously you've got your top three, you've got their backups, and then the +1, which I think this +1 at right now, Tom, based on everything we're hearing, based on what people are talking about, I think I might suggest Malik Hartford for that +1 because he's impressing everybody. True freshman safety.
Yeah, he's come in, and he wasn't in for the spring, right? He was. Okay, he was in for the spring. It's been a year.
It's a long time ago.
So he was in for the spring, but he's someone who you don't expect a true freshman to come in and play. I mean, I think. I'm trying to think of true freshmen who played safety at Ohio State. Donnie Nicky, I think, was a redshirt freshman when he started.
Doss eventually started that season, I think, taking it from Nicky maybe.
In 2000. Yeah, but I mean, that's not a true freshman starter is not good news. A true freshman who is working his way into the rotation, that is good news. That's someone who is, this is not need. This is not lots of guys who've gone down with injury. This is just someone who's been impressive. And Perry Eliano was talking about how, just working with the nutrition people, working with Mick and the strength staff, and how much Malik Hartford has improved physically, just improved his body since getting to Ohio State. So that's one of those little things that, okay, if you're doing the attention to detail stuff there, you're probably doing the attention to detail stuff in the meeting rooms, on the practice field, everywhere else. That's the kind of stuff you got to do to get kind of noticed and get yourself into that mix a little earlier than maybe expected.
Yeah, I don't remember what he was listed at when he came in. It was maybe 174. He's at 194 right now. Sonny Styles was asked, have you been surprised how well he's playing in camp? And he's like, no, I'm not surprised because I talked to him. And, just talking to him, you understood that he takes things seriously and that he has the proper mentality to have success in camp and to impress as a young guy. And he's a guy that can play either spot in the back end. He could play deep safety, or he could play free safety, strong safety. He's a big hitter. He's just a smart kid and doing everything the right way. So, maybe he gets in there in terms of a backup type of role. But again, you've got a backup strong safety, you've got a backup free safety and a backup nickel at this point. And those guys, you say backup nickel with Cam Martinez, maybe. Perry Eliano was quite clear that it's still practice number 5, and a lot of things can change, and it's very, very early. So don't start pinning these guys into these positions because, for one, they can all play multiple positions. But also, again, as coaches like to say, Tom, it's very early.
It is very early. It might be an Orr on the depth chart, which would only be surprising to Adam Schefter, apparently.
That was so bizarre. Adam Schefter tweets today, there's an Orr on an NFL depth chart. He's like, that's the first time I've ever seen an Orr on a depth chart.
And immediately gets quote tweeted by literally every college football writer in the
nation. I didn't
nation.
get a chance, I forgot.
You're going to lose your FWAA card if you don't pile on them. Yeah, it was like, well, that probably tells me that if you have the luxury of not having to obscure something, you actually could make a decision. But yeah, that is not the case at the collegiate level. It's been a while since we've actually seen a depth chart.
Well, that is also true.
Yeah, so yeah, it is. But it's early, Tony, as we've established. Yeah, through 5 practices now, and we're going to get a chance to watch again at the end of the week on Friday. So that's going to be, I think that's going to be fairly telling in terms of what has changed and what hasn't changed. Because yeah, they know TV cameras are there, and yeah, they don't want to tell us that this guy's running here, or we're looking at it this way. They're also not going to waste a practice like with subterfuge too. Like, look, now Sonny Styles is playing tight end. Hey, what a surprise! Like you're gonna see who's where. So we'll have a much better sense for what was real and what was not from practice one when we get to see that on Friday.
Yeah. Kevin, any questions?
Yes. El Suzabo, will Proctor see playing time? Seems Carter and Styles have jumped him.
Yeah, that's the question. Will Josh Proctor see some playing time this year? Because it seems like he's been jumped by Jihad Carter. That's my question. And we did not talk to him today.
Mm-hmm.
And players don't always want to talk, and sometimes they'll just not even know they're supposed to talk and just So, but I'm interested in finding that out as well, because each year, the past 2 years, he's won a job in fall camp. So, he may still do the same thing again. You just wonder how he's doing mentally to see. And again, that was the one luck we got. And
right.
And maybe he was out there. Jihad Carter was out there again on Friday with the ones for the second of the practice for the fans. But how does he handle coming in and seeing and being told you're number 2 right now, and whether that 2 is, because I'm not even sure it's the number 2 free safety. It may be the number 2 strong safety, because Kai Stokes was out there plenty on Thursday at I believe free safety. Yeah,
and the question it mentioned Sonny Styles jumping him. Sonny Styles is right now repping at a different position, so I don't know that Sonny necessarily has jumped him, but you've got your 3 starters who we've talked about, Carter and Ransom and Styles. Your next 3 to get to your 6. If Malik Hartford is the +1, we've got to get 3 more. The next 3 are Josh Proctor, I think, is in that group. So is Kai Stokes and Cam Martinez, right? Is that your assumption? That's your 6 + 1? Yeah, I think that's probably a pretty good guess. And
Court Williams now at linebacker,
right?
So he's out of the picture.
Yeah, if you're wondering about Court Williams, he's moved closer. They wanted to get him a little closer to the ball. So that's what he's going to be. Looks like he's going to be at Sam this year, is what Jim Knowles said last week. Yeah, so I'm fascinated to see how that goes, because obviously he's not had the best luck, and I don't know if this is another turn or if this is something that will drive him. It's going to be a long season, though, as we saw with all of the defensive backs last year. You can't just expect to only play 3. You can't even expect to just play 6. Yeah.
So. Kevin?
Yes. This is from Jordan Kapler. How much rotation do you think there will be in the secondary?
How much rotation do we think will be in the secondary, Tom, from Jordan Kapler?
I'm expecting rotation at corner. They have typically done that, and it feels like they feel pretty good about their top 3 to 4 probably. So you're going to see your top 3 to 4 guys rotating in meaningful situations. Like we're not talking about, hey, they're up by 75 points against Youngstown State. That's you get deeper in your depth chart there. But you're in the first quarter against Indiana, and you might see 3 to 4 different corners. Safety, Tony, it's only practice 5. It's still very early. I think if they're unwilling to tell us who's going to be where, it feels like it's probably too early to make a real informed guess on the safety rotation. But
it won't stop me.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like you're gonna see more than 3, but more than 3, less than 7. Maybe, I mean, maybe 6, but maybe. But I think it might be less than 6.
Yeah, I think I would agree on corner, and I do expect to see 3 play throughout. Like, say Jordan Hancock runs a streak with somebody, then you have Davis Nigbenosin come in. Jair Brown, like the fact that he started last year as a true freshman and he played, the level right now to play on this squad, I think, is much higher than it was last year. So he's going to have to be better, and I obviously believe that he is better. But to be able to break the top 3 is going to be a taller line than it was last year. So we'll see if he can get there. But I do expect 3 corners to play. Safety, I think there will be some mixing and matching with Sonny and Cam Martinez, depending on down and distance and maybe even opponent, although letting an opponent like Western Kentucky, who will throw the ball for 5,000 yards this year, take Sonny off the field, I think is not something they want to do. They want to see what he can handle. So I think you'll see 4 there. And Knowles and Day have talked about maybe less rotation this year defensively. So once Josh Proctor left the field against Notre Dame, we didn't really see him a lot. Now, he started, I think, maybe the next week, but didn't necessarily play a lot. And Kai Stokes only played essentially in blowouts or when somebody was hurt. So I guess I'll be surprised if Lathan Ransom leaves the field much, which is bad news for perhaps Josh Proctor. Because, again, as you said, it's moving parts. We don't know where everybody's necessarily going to be yet. But we also haven't seen enough of Jihad Carter to know if he is a guy that you cannot remove from the field.
Right. And, last year, how much did Tanner McAllister come off the field? It felt like not a ton.
Not as much as, yeah.
And
because they didn't really do a lot of the Sam stuff that we thought they might.
And Kai Stokes is someone who last year was a true freshman. So I think last year, Kai, we're having the same conversation about Kai Stokes last year that we're having about Malik Hartford this year, where he's probably the +1 last year. And maybe you work yourself into that top 6 at some point. I'm expecting to see more Kai Stokes this year. Just, you keep hearing good things. When you keep hearing good things about players, and when we're watching, he will tend to do stuff. He will,
he's a stuff doer.
He is a stuff doer. That is he is like double stuff. It is, he's someone who you see it enough, you hear it enough. It's like, okay, there's something here. It was like, it was like the true freshman year for Marvin Harrison, where even before spring practice, everyone was like, oh no, no. You think, no, you don't know yet. You just wait. And, so it was like, okay, this is still a very loaded wide receiver room. How much is he really going to play? And the answer was not a ton, but you saw him kind of work his way in during the course of the year, and then 3 touchdowns in the Rose Bowl, and then he's off to the races. I don't know that you're going to see exactly that trajectory for Kai Stokes, but he's enough. He's one of these guys where you hear enough and you see enough that it's like, all right, there is something here. This is going to be a guy who plays some kind of a role.
He's one of those guys. I think if you would just let him play, like he would make plays. Yeah, but I think how many plays does he give up? And that's they know that in practice. But again, I think he's a productive player when given the opportunity. I'm just not sure, how much we see of him this year. I think based on everything we saw in the preseason last year in the spring, I think it would be a good idea to get him some rotation work. But I think we'll see him in the fourth quarter against a lot of teams this year.
Yeah.
Kevin?
Yeah. Drowsy Dragon. How does Calvin Simpson Hunt look? Will he see playing time this season?
How does Calvin Simpson Hunt look, the true freshman from Waxahachie, Texas? How will he play this year? How's he looking? Again, we've only seen one practice. Haven't heard too much about him. And again, he was a summer enrollee.
Yeah, only showed up in the summer. So that puts you behind. And that's a loaded room too.
It is a loaded room. He's a big kid. He's wiry. He's aggressive. He's strong. I think they like everything about him. And now he's just being baptized. And we'll see how as Ryan Day says, once they pop their head out of the water, like in a totally different analogy, he's not talking about baptism with that, but we'll see what happens, like midway through camp when he can finally lift his head up and take a look around and see how far from shore he is. Another water analogy that is completely.
This turned into a Clemson football podcast briefly there. He's, if you have a true freshman who's playing at corner, especially a summer enrollee, either you have an off-the-charts positive outcome or an off-the-charts negative outcome. There is one of two things has happened, and they're like black swan events, basically. Either this kid is the most incredible corner you've ever seen, and we're only 5 practices in, so it's too early to say that, or you have had like a biblical plague of injuries, which they kind of had at the cornerback room last year, which is how Jihad Carter ends up starting, or Jihad Brown, ends up starting against Wisconsin last year. I think he's, you look at the high school highlights and you hear people talk about him, and it's like, this kid is on track to be something special, but it's also, I think that's a see you in 2024 kind of special where you're going to see him in the fourth quarter, probably against Youngstown State, but I don't think I'm expecting him to be any kind of rotational player this year.
No, especially when they've got a good top 4. Kevin?
Yeah, from Gary K. I just want to see less big play mistakes from the secondary. I don't care who is on the field. Just play fundamentally sound defense and make the tackle when it is there.
Gary Kay saying, whoever's out there, just make tackles. Don't give up big plays. I believe that is Jim Knowles' burner account, or perhaps that is Gary Knowles. But yeah, I mean, that's the plan. And we have not heard Jim Knowles say at all since basically the end of last year, the start of this year. Nothing about
the five plays.
Yeah, I've not heard him say anything about that. It's baked in, it's burnt in, and so now you're scrubbing the pan, trying to get the black soot off of all of your pans. Yeah, he has not mentioned that at all. So I don't know if that was a directive from Ryan Day, like enough of this 5 plays stuff. Like how about no plays?
Yeah,
that's the baseline right now. And yeah, tackling, just staying on your feet, keeping your head in the right place. They are definitely focused on that and working on that. And again, cannot stress enough, second year in the system, talked about it again today. This is the first time any of these guys have been in the system for the second year in a row.
Super chat from Treasure the Torah. Just want to say have a blessed day to my Buckeye family. Kevin, Tom, and Tony G. Have an awesome year. Go Buckeyes.
Well, thank you, Treasure.
Thank you very much for that. We do appreciate that. Yeah, and we talked about it in the spring, second year in the system, the ability to be quicker to the ball, the ability to you've got 3 safeties. Talk about the safeties today. They can each play any of the 3 positions, and it's not too much to ask of them. Now, what Jim Knowles did say is he wants everybody to have a home. He doesn't want to do too much switching, but the nature of this position is it will switch based on where the slot receiver goes, which is something you probably talked with Ross and Devin about on the show. Wherever the strength of the offense goes, that dictates. Sonny will be playing in the slot unless the slot goes to the other side. Then he becomes the boundary safety, the deep safety. So they have to be able to do different things because play by play, the offense will dictate kind of the coverage of what they do.
Yeah, that's something that you have to be cross-trained. You have to be versatile. This is a little like the wide receivers when we talk about, is this guy going to play outside or inside, or is it the X, the Z, the H? And you got to, there are going to be times when Marvin Harrison is playing in the slot because that sets up a matchup against the other team's slot corner more than likely. So that is generally not your best coverage guy. So that's a favorable matchup. And you can get safeties out of position, all that kind of stuff. So this is very much a cat and mouse game. But when the offense does that, that changes what the defense does. You mentioned getting to the ball and making plays on the ball. Sonny Styles talked about the fact that he has to, he's still working on sort of trusting himself, trusting what he sees. There was a play in the spring game where he just hesitated for a split second and then broke on a ball late and almost, he said he could have taken it for 6. Didn't quite get there. He's working on trying to really trust what you see and break on it fast because that's where the big plays come from. This is a defense that has not produced a ton of turnovers, especially in interceptions, except from the defensive end position at random times last year. The secondary has not produced
semifinalist JT
Tuimoloau. Yeah, he this is not a secondary that's produced a ton of turnovers, interceptions last few years. It sounds like that's something they want to get better on. But with a young player like Sonny Styles, who again should technically be a true freshman this year, so that comes with film and reps and having seen it enough that you instinctively know when I see this is what that means, and you go. That's just is a process. It just takes some time to get there. Yeah. Speaking of JT Tuimoloau,
yes,
he stepped in during every once in a while we're doing these interviews on the indoor. One of the other players will come up and they'll stand there and watch, and every once in a while they'll shout out a question. And JT walked up and said, he did this. He did Sonny Styles remember when Coach Mick talked to him about the fact that he needed to improve his speed because remember all the times he ran against JT and JT beat him by like 20, 30 yards and how, he really needed to work on that. Sonny didn't remember that. So maybe he's got a memory problem. I don't know.
Well, as a defensive back, that's what you want.
Short memory. There you go.
And interestingly, he's wearing number 6 now. What happens like the first pick 6? Then that becomes kind of what you're known for. So perhaps he has designs on being the next Malik Hooker, different position, but a bunch of pick 6s. Kevin, got any other questions?
We do. Tyler with the question, Tom, Tony, Kevin, if we are to become a top 5 defense this year, what is the ceiling for this year's team?
So if it's a top 5 defense, what is the ceiling for this year's team? If it's a top 5 defense, the ceiling is national championship. I don't. because if you're a top 5 defense, then you don't need to have the number 1 offense in the country. Because I think there are very legitimate concerns about the offensive line, and a just okay offensive line can cost you a game at some point. That is a real possibility. And that's a real possibility if you have a top 30 defense, a top 40 defense, as they've had in recent years. If you got a top 5 defense, you don't need to score 48, 49 points every single game to win games against good competition. Maybe you can win by 38. If you could win 38-31 instead of 49-42. That's a lot of pressure off that defense. And it feels like this could be a top 5 defense, because I go back to 2019. What did that 2019 team have? Incredible pass rush, great secondary, great corner play, great safety play. I think they're going to have a very, very good pass rush this year. I think they're going to have very, very good corner play. Early returns on the corners this fall have been very, very positive. If you've got good safety play, if they have a Jordan Fuller on this roster, and maybe they don't, but if they have a Jordan Fuller on this roster, then you're looking at, what that 2019 team had the grave misfortune of playing in 2019 instead of probably any other year within a 5-year span, because they probably would have won the national championship in just about any of the other years, but played in the year where there were 3 teams that would probably could say that. LSU, Clemson, and Ohio State all in 2019 were kind of at that level that typically is national championship good. This team, if they solve the offensive line question, you sort of assume the quarterback situation is going to work itself out. They've got so much skill talent. I think the defense is going to be good. Whether it's top 5 good or top 10 good, we'll see. But it feels like all the pieces are potentially there to coalesce into a national championship type team.
And even if the quarterbacks are slow to become what you expect, if you've got the defense to get them through Notre Dame in week 4, and allow, because the quarterbacks I don't think will be average all year long. They may start out that. I don't expect that, but it's a possibility. It's a possibility that they may struggle. I think by the end of the year, somebody will have taken control, and now this offense is humming again, and then you've got that defense. And, I guess my concern with the defense at this point is probably safety in terms of if you're going to rank the situations, because feel good about defensive ends, feel good about the tackles, maybe some tackle depth issues, unless some of the young guys step up. Linebackers are fine. Corners I expect to be fine. Safety, just based on what we saw last year, and you've got 2 new starters, maybe however many in the rotation. I think that would be a concern. I'm not saying it's going to cost them anything. It's relative to everything else. That's my concern defensively. Kevin?
Rapid fire to clear the queue. Yeah. One person, one question.
Rapid fire.
All right. This one's to Tom from Ben Higgins. What made you think that blue would be a good choice today?
See, here's the thing. Last night we were at the hotel check-in, and I'm like, I'm going to wear a gray shirt today, because that way when we go live, I won't have people asking me why I'm wearing blue. Kevin wore blue last night. We didn't do a live show last night. So now I'm the bad guy. And Keenan Bailey did give people grief about wearing blue to hotel check-in day last night.
Yeah, good job.
Right. A question from Kevin, but not this Kevin, for Tony. Hunter Heinz ketchup on your steak, Tony.
Hunter Heinz ketchup on my steak. I don't eat ketchup on my steak. So the answer is neither. Thank you. You just eat the steak with the garlic butter and maybe Cheese Whiz. Kevin?
For Tom from Jordan Kapler, who on the Buckeye Huddle staff is most likely to swing a folding chair?
Who on the Buckeye Huddle? Oh, man. You can't bring up the Doc Donnybrook and expects us to do this rapid fire. Who on the Buckeye Huddle staff is most likely to swing a folding chair? Now, you can go one of 2 ways here, which is biggest wrestling fan or biggest anger issues. So I'm going to go biggest wrestling fan, and I'm going to say that would make Tony the most likely to swing a folding chair, because I feel like you go deepest on pro wrestling of anyone on staff.
Well, the foolish part that you've just fallen into is thinking that I'm also not the angriest, because I can be. And if moved to swing a chair, I will swing a chair. Now, I also believe I could, again, would I do it to hurt somebody? Yeah. Would I do it to hurt them badly? No. Depending. Now, get me worked up, we might find out. But yeah, I would have no problem. And again, it looked like a plastic chair. It doesn't even hurt. So yes, I would swing that on you right now on camera. I would let somebody
just making sure they picked up the plastic chairs. They did. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. So
Yeah. Yeah. It was. Can we talk for one moment? I think the better question is, who on the Buckeye Huddle staff would be most likely to jump off of a ferry boat and swim across the water to get involved in a fight?
Yeah, it wouldn't be me. It would not be me. I'd say you, Tom.
Me?
Yeah, if it's somebody like, it's not online, it's inline, and you're like, oh, how dare you say something bad about my East Coast languaging?
I just heard someone say pop. Hold my phone and wallet
Hold
and
my
car
soda.
keys. Hold my soda. I've got to sort this out.
But yeah, as I tweeted, like my TikTok algorithm is just all Montgomery. There's nothing else. No puppies and cats anymore. It's just all Montgomery.
I had missed that when that first happened, and I saw it, and then I fell down the rabbit hole of people like commenting on it, and the guy doing like play-by-play on it, and like, man, it was.
Did you see the dude that ends up with his Crocs like up on his calves?
Yes, I saw that.
It's amazing.
I mean, that's one of those things that 10 years from now, someone's going to bring that up and everyone in the room's going to go, oh, yeah.
The most amazing thing is all of the enterprising entrepreneurs, there's like white folding chair earrings, there's like everything. And also I saw somebody show all of the price increases of white folding chairs on Amazon. Like, buy this 6-pack of white folding chairs for $200. Like, this is gouging. And in time of emergency, in the time of need, Amazon is price gouging.
It's like buying folding tables in upstate New York in football season.
Yes.
From Odysseus, who would last the longest in fall camp? Tom, Tony, or Kevin?
Who would last the longest? Well, I would be like, after I collapse, I'd be like, no, just leave me here. I'm going to need some time. And I think I could wait you guys out. Just like, no, I'm not ready yet.
I think the question needs to be framed correctly, which one of us would make it through the stretching period?
You just hear hamstrings popping everywhere.
Last one, more of a serious question from Mark Fetters.
That was serious.
Do you think under Day his teams lacked toughness?
Do the Ohio State football teams under Ryan Day lack toughness? You know, Day said himself that Michigan game last year, he was disappointed in the way they could not handle adversity, but then they bounced back and seemed to handle it well against Georgia, except for the 18 points towards the end. So, you know, I'm not going to sit here and tell any of these guys, all of the work that they put into it, that, you know, in the dead of summer and everywhere in between, that they lack toughness, because it's very tough to do what they do. You know, so I don't. Now, why does that happen? I think, is that toughness is what is that?
Right. And the question then is, okay, if you're having fourth quarter issues, because they don't have to play very many fourth quarter games. How many fourth quarter games did they play last year? Notre Dame it was close, but it was never a one-score game.
Penn State.
Penn State was close with 8 minutes left. They were behind, I think, with like 8 minutes left. So that was a four-quarter game. Really, that was it until Michigan and then Georgia. And both Michigan and Georgia, they gave up a ton of points and kind of fell apart in the fourth quarter. So is that conditioning? Is that mental? Is that just, you know, is that the aggressiveness of offensive play calling versus the aggressiveness of, you know, was the offensive play calling not aggressive enough and the defensive play calling was too aggressive?
Did everybody just dial it back?
I mean, there's a, you know, and if Marvin Harrison is still in the game, we're probably not having this conversation, and there's another banner up there that says national champion. So I think this team has gotten so close. And sometimes when you're a younger team, sometimes you just got to learn how to finish.
Yeah.
You see that at every level of the sport, where and in all sorts of different sports, where sometimes you got to have the year where you almost get there, and then you have the year when you get there, and it's just a matter of learning how to finish the drill and play the full 60 minutes and, you know, potentially beyond. Yeah,
you got to let last year help this year in terms of the learning process. So thank you all for the questions. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for joining us today as we finish up here. So I'm going to invite everybody to check out Buckeye Huddle, become a member, say hello to us there. Check us out at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle, facebook.com/Buckeye Huddle. Wherever you need to find us, we can be there for you. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys later.